Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's webinar, New Year, New COPA. Happy New Year's to everybody. We have a bit of an ongoing debate in the COPA office of at what point must you stop wishing others Happy New Year? So as you're introducing yourselves in the chat, I welcome you to share your hot take. Is it January 1st? Is it January 30th? March? Who knows? I'm Sharon Chung. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications. You might have seen me through other channels in the past. I've been with the association for a few years now, about 4, and we're very excited to have you here with us tonight. We do plan to have more and more of these types of events throughout the year. But before we get started, I'd love to connect you with our president, Mark Van Berkel, who talk a bit about the association itself. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you. And it's really great that we have a lot of people actually online and joining us, basically coast to coast to coast. So it's very exciting for us to see that there's a real interest in what COPA is doing for general aviation in Canada. Just before we get started with the presentation, I just wanted to introduce the members to the staff. Sharon's already introduced herself. She's the Director of Marketing and Communications. Jim Ferrier is here with us. Jim, do you want to give just a quick hello and let the people know about you?
Yeah, hi everybody. Jim Ferrier, Director of Aviation Operations. Dealing with the advocacy issues, government, NAV Canada, aviation questions, registration, medicals, all those kind of things. So good to be here.
Thank you, Jim. And then Michelle Millette, who is our newly appointed Director of Membership Services. And Michelle, you want to just give a quick hello and tell the people about you?
Yes, hi. So I've been with COPA now 2.5 years. And like Mark said, I'm taking care of membership services. If you have not been on Glue Up yet and you need help in setting up, or if you have any questions or issues, please contact me at copanational.org. Thank you.
And we also have, as a member of Sharon's team, Hannah is with us. He's the person who puts together a lot of the stuff you're going to see tonight. Hannah, do you want to just say hello and tell the people about yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm, as Mark mentioned, part of the communications team. So every time you get an email, every time you see a social media post, you can either thank me or hate me for it.
All right. Thanks, Hannah. And lastly, a new member of our team, Ayub. Ayub, you're there as our new executive assistant and office manager. You want to just say hello to everybody?
Yes, thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. My name is Ayub Makwar. I'm the Executive Assistant and Office Manager at COPA. I've recently joined the team, and it's a pleasure meeting all of our members tonight. And I wish everyone a productive and enjoyable presentation.
Well, thanks, everybody. That's the team attending. Obviously, there's a couple other people at the COPA's team that aren't on the call tonight, or at least part of this presentation part of it. But really, COPA is a small team. I mean, we're staff in Ottawa, and we really try to do a lot with with as little manpower as we can. What I wanted to talk to tonight is to go over where we are from 2024, but really to kind of give the members an update on where we're headed. It's sort of I've been here for a year and a half as the president and CEO. Obviously, 2024, we made some big changes in the association, some structural changes in the association. Some of them went well, some of them didn't go as well. We'll talk a little bit about that. But 2025 is really the year we're going to see some of the fruits of our labor from 2024 pay off for us. And one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about was the mission and the vision. It's slightly changed. It's not completely foreign, but really our mission is really preserve, promote, and inspire general aviation in Canada. And our vision is really we are the stewards of the thriving general aviation community in Canada. And essentially, aviation starts here. And what we really mean by that is everyone who is flying in Canada with a Canadian pilot's license started in general aviation. We essentially are the door towards the aviation industry of the future. And I think we have to think of ourselves that way. We're much more than a recreational flying club, even though most of our members really do this out of pleasure and passion for aviation. The reality is we are the groundwork. We are really the kindergarten for the aviation industry of the future. And I think it's important for us to see ourselves like that. Sharon, next slide.
Absolutely. Here we go.
And so just to kind of recap where we were in 2024, and I'm going to hand the slides over to Jim just shortly. But we did put out a new member management system, which was GlueUp, and that was early on in 2024. And I know that a lot of the members, not a lot of the members, but some of the members struggled with the change to that. And just to give an explanation, I don't think that it's fully appreciated of why we needed to do that. We were really running with a long in the tooth legacy system that essentially was being run, by a company that had a server underneath the desk, someone's desk. And so we were really at the mercy of a person that was doing that. And COPA has some very unique requirements in how we are, how we manage our membership database. And one of them is our bilingualism. So, we really had to find something that was going to work in both French and English, but we wanted something that was scalable. We wanted something that was going to allow members to, access their information, update their information, and be current. And I know that there are some things that were challenging with moving over to the new system. We still have, on a daily basis, we probably still have members that are still just finding out a year later that we switched to a member management system. But if you need some help with it, we definitely are there. We try to give help. Most of the time, it's something simple like, the password is being reset or something like that, or they've just found themselves where they just don't remember. And I get it. This may not be the most important thing in your life is logging into your COPA account. I get it. And so, we are there to support you in that. So, but we do recognize we did have some challenges, but I do think we're at a steady state at this point. We also launched a new association website, and it is tied into our member management system. Essentially, the member management system's on the back end of it, and the front end of it is a website. Early on in 2024, we hadn't totally transitioned everything over, but we have transitioned everything over now, and we're really just filling it out and updating it and maintaining it. We're adding some French web pages is ongoing, and these are all good things. And I really think Sharon's team has done a great job of upping our presence on the web with the new website. We've also introduced a number of new benefits to members. One of them is ID90. And one of the things we're going to do tonight is there's a little bit of a poll that Sharon is going to pop up, or Hannah's going to pop up in the chat to talk about. So one of them that I think is a big deal was the introduction of ID90. If you don't know what ID90 is, you probably should go look into it. It essentially, before COPA really had a very, very small, we had a few hotels here and there across the country. We had a rental car agreement, and that was it. ID90 has really allowed us to elevate our member benefit globally. So it's not just tied to like the hotel in Saskatoon that we might have had a member benefit with. It actually gives you access to hotels all over the world. It gives you access to, cruise, vacation type of things. And it really, ID90 was tailored after airline benefits. So the one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't include access to cheap flights because, quite frankly, most airlines offer their employees flight benefits anyway. So I think it does dovetail nicely into the member benefits of people who fly their own airplanes and maybe need a hotel here and there. But rental cars, hotels, cruises, vacation type of things, ID90 is a great thing. We have a few other ones. One other one is Level Flight too. That's some online training that we've managed to negotiate a member benefit for, and so you should check them out. But without getting into all of the laundry list of member benefits that COPA currently has, you should check them out, and it's available on our website under the member benefits thing of all the various ones. I mean, I think we have a Good Life Fitness benefit, we have Boom, we have a ton of what I think are really, really good benefits. Of course, we're always open to suggestions of other things that, members might want to see as a member benefit, because we do have a little bit of clout with having, close to 11,000 members. It's an attractive thing, and we do have the ability to go out. That was how we got ID90, is they were very interested in us because of the strong membership that we have. Some of you may have noticed that there's been changes to the magazine in 2024, and they're going to continue into 2025. One of the biggest things is it's an improved magazine editorial content. We've brought it all in house, so we are really the producers of the magazine, of Flight Magazine. That's maybe a good thing. It's maybe a bad thing for some people. But I think you're going to see more content that's tailored to the interests of the members, about the members, and by the members. And we always are encouraging anyone who's got pictures or stories or just interesting things that are happening at your local flight, your local airport, send them into Sharon, and we'll put it in the magazine or in one of our e-flights. And that was the last thing just to talk about that I'm going to talk about is about, more news and content. We've really tried to focus eFlight on being a bulletin type of thing, or providing information that we think our members want to hear, news and content that our members want to hear. And I think we've tried to change it from being, an advertorial type of email that goes out every 2 weeks into something that's providing, content and update that hopefully is adding value to the membership. And that is the one thing I want all the members to understand, is that every single thing that Team COPA does in Ottawa as staff is really trying to add value to your membership. As I've said before, I want it to be the best $85 that you spend in Canadian aviation in Canada. I want that to be your COPA membership. And so we really are trying hard. Again, like I said, we're a small team, but we really, really do try hard to add value to your membership. That being said, Jim, do you want to talk about the advocacy things we've been doing?
Just before we get into that, Mark,
Yes.
I'm going to draw everyone's attention. If you're using the browser or the app for Microsoft Teams, we have some polls going on. So I'll just draw your attention to the top of your window. There's a poll button. Help us collect some information, answer some of the questions throughout. We popped in a question on whether or not you do use ID90. And I guess before we move on, I just recently used it for a couple trips. Mark, have there been any standout events for you for ID90?
Absolutely. Like my son got married this year, and I booked a bunch of hotels through that. I traveled across Canada, and I booked hotels in every city that we stayed in using ID90, and it was seamless. I had a problem in one of them, and ID90 stood up and took care of it and resolved my issue. And so I was very happy for the way that it worked out for me.
Good, thank you. So we're seeing some data here. If some of you are using ID90, we're happy to host an event to share how to get on there. Your profiles are already set up as a COPA member. All you need to do is give us a call if you need to reset your password. And so we want you to take advantage of the benefits that you have. For those not seeing the polls, at the top of my window, at least, I see there's a few buttons. Beside the plus button, there's a poll, and you can just click on there. But if not, for now, feel free to put in the chat. We're still testing this tool out for some of our live events. We were previously using other webinar tools. And Mark, I think you were about to ask Jim what were some of the high-level updates from 2024 for advocacy, as we know our members care about the work that we're doing there.
Absolutely. Jim, do you want to talk about the advocacy work that was been done and maybe what's happening 2025, the forecast of what you see you and George working on?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 2024 was a busy year, and as you mentioned, it's myself and George Farrington are the two that really focus on the advocacy issues in the association day to day. Uh, And talking advocacy, I also don't want to forget about the safety portion. So we also handle the program. So I'm actually going to really, we've got a few highlights there on the screen, but I'm going to just touch on a few of them and maybe a little more detail just so people know where we're at. So the first one I'm actually going to deal with safety. So we talked about it back at the AGM in June that we are active partners with Transport Canada and the General Aviation Safety Program. With that, we have 9 working groups that we're meeting monthly on, working through things. Some exciting work happening around stabilized approaches, which we're going to see. A lot of work was also done in the seaplane group this summer. So some of that has been filtered out through our e-flights, and we will continue to update as we get more information as things change in there. We're also members of the General Aviation Joint Safety Council, which is an FAA U.S. industry driven group, which is very strong in the GA world. So we're part of that. We pretty much monthly meetings with them. There's also some very good content if people aren't familiar with the GAJSC available at the website for the General Aviation Joint Safety Council at www.gajsc.org. So lots of good safety information there. So yeah, we continue to focus on the safety programs, but at the same time, we're absolutely keeping our eyes on what's happening in the industry and what's going on and affecting things. So, number of big issues still ongoing. Obviously, we're still faced with a lot of challenges with aerodromes. We're still seeing aerodromes and municipalities questioning the value of their aerodromes, etc. So we're continuing to stay on top of that as members make us aware of issues that are going on. We have dealt with a few of those through this past year, seeing a lot of airports adding landing fees, lease changes, those kind of things, which are impacting members across the country. We've also recently been seeing some attempts to restrict flight training in a number of places. So the most recent example at a large airport, it was in Winnipeg where they were trying to specifically target single engine piston aircraft from doing flight training at the airport, with which we became involved ourselves and led the charge with the Air Transport Association of Canada and managed to get the NOTAMs that were restricting that removed for Winnipeg. Happy to say that Transport Canada is also interested in this particular item, so we actually have support from the regulator, which we're pretty thankful for in this area. Moving along, obviously, most of you are aware that over the summer we had a shortage of 100 low lead. This was because of a shutdown of the one refinery in Canada with Imperial Oil and COPA, and Mark in particular took up the reins and took up the charge and managed to engage directly with Imperial Oil to find out what was going on and to have discussions about the cause and future mitigations on how to avoid it. For what we got back was that it was an unusual circumstance. Obviously, a number of things came together to make it happen, but they have taken lessons learned from it and are building further mitigations in to avoid 100 low lead shortages in the future. Along with 100 low lead, of course, most of you are aware there is the 100 unleaded story continues south of the border, which we're following quite closely. We are members of the larger Eagle group that meets and has discussions on it, so we're watching developments as they come. Many of you may have heard that California has now said that 100 unleaded is to be the only high octane fuel available for piston engines in California. So that, of course, is a challenge, particularly for us Canadians, because Transport Canada has given us no direction on being able to use it. Interestingly, just yesterday, an update came out that apparently the distributors in California are, in fact, challenging that decision to make 100 UL as the only candidate in California, based on the fact that it's not not commercially viable yet. It is available, but it's not widespread and it's not commercially viable. So there's definitely still challenges to be overcome there. Medicals and licensing. So we continue to see a number of members reaching out to us regarding medical delays. I'm going to say, fortunately, most of them appear to be people with underlying conditions, but unfortunately, it's people with underlying conditions. Transport Canada recently advised us that of files generally being sent to the regional offices, 92% of those are being resolved within 12 days. And those include or don't include the ones that are renewed day of when the CAMI actually stamps your medical. The biggest challenge, of course, as I said, is those with underlying conditions, where Transport Canada indicated that they have approximately 1,000 files a year. So it's 1,000 actually out of 60,000 applications for medicals through the year. 1,000 went to the AMRB. Of those, 95% are dealt with by specialists, right? Directly one specialist dealing with it, so tend to be resolved in relatively shorter periods of time, whereas 5% or about 50 cases a year get referred to the main AMRB, and this can cause significant delays as they have to bring the whole board, all of which are specialists that have other day jobs in hospitals and so on, to look at the files. So in particular, any kind of those complex cases are still taking quite a long time to improve or be approved. So we're really working with Transport Canada. We had a very good discussion with them prior to Christmas about work that they're trying to move forward with, changes in some of the policies and processes to continue to improve the turnaround time on medicals. The other big issue, or one of the other big issues we've been following closely over the course of the last few years, is of course service denials, or what you might see on the website is the NAV Canada Experience Report, where we're seeing members being denied access into Class C airspace in a number of sites. In discussions with NAV Canada, typically the answer is it's due to short staffing at those sites. The two large focal points of these problems appear to be Vancouver and Montreal areas. So any of you in those areas, it's definitely where the issues are. Their forecasted staffing in those areas is not positive, that they're still looking several years out into the future before they're looking at full staffing in those areas. On that line, we did have discussions with the board, Mark and myself, at one of the recent board meetings, and we have had the opportunity to engage with the NAV Canada board member who is responsible for non-commercial operations, and he has actually brought the matter directly to the NAV Canada board. So at this point, we're waiting for information back regarding the questions that have been brought there. But it is definitely in front of the NAV Canada management. I was recently at an advisory committee meeting, and it's definitely something that is being looked at as one of the priority issues to get into conversations with COPA to try and find solutions, in particular in those two particular areas. The other big issue, again, looking both at the regulator and NAV Canada, is, of course, the ADS-B mandate. We all know that the Class B airspace mandate came out in May of this year. NAV Canada continues to stress that C, D, and E will not be before 2028, but as we know, it's now 2025, and the clock is ticking, so it's becoming less and less time before we're going to know where things are going. We have learned that there has been some limited deployment of ground stations in order to augment the satellite-based system, in particular in areas of congested airspace, in order to be able to see ADS-B targets. So we're hopeful that a ground-based solution may be a preferred option for ADS-B across the country where needed. So we continue to focus on this issue. We're not letting them forget that we want to see a simple solution, ground-based, that can accommodate aircraft that don't need specific installations, in particular some of the newer aircraft that cannot be equipped with diversity. So we continue to push on this issue, and it is forefront coming into 2025 as we move forward. With that, don't forget another piece of avionics, 406 ELTs is coming in 2025, so it's coming for the end of this year. So if you haven't addressed the 406 issue, it is coming our way as a regulation in 2025. We do continue to talk about, options that should somebody have other available means, perhaps we don't have to adopt 406, but at this point, it really is D&D is the big backer, and it's becoming more and more difficult, we think, to be able to look at alternatives at this point. Circling back a little bit, back to medicals, we have had a lot of discussions with Transport Canada about the potential of introducing a new medical standard similar to the basic med in the United States. Our neighbors to the south, in particular AOPA, have been working with us and trying to get reciprocal recognition that basic med would come to Canada sooner than later. As I said, I had a discussion with Transport Canada before Christmas, and at that time, they did indicate that they are working on restructuring the Category 4 medical to be more in alignment with what U.S. basic med is. There was no official timeline given, but they did promise that work was happening in 2025, and there should be news of something in 2025. So we're keeping our eyes on this file as we hope that there will be some progress that comes along with it. Finally, just wanted to have a little short discussion about freedom to fly. We know that it's one of those things that we are always looking for donations to support the fund, and we wanted to just provide a little background behind it. So the Freedom to Fly Fund, of course, as everybody knows, is funded by donations and is reserved for special actions for regarding significant national importance. The merits of any of these requests actually go to the board when we get it, and they decide whether or not the particular ask is approved or not. There is a reasonably large amount of money available in the fund, but as all of us know, if we ever get into legal actions, the costs begin to rise very quickly. And certainly, even though there is a decent amount of money there, if we were to get into a difficult case that needed or required numerous appeals, the fund would significantly reduce very quickly. So we're always mindful of what it's used for. Of course, a good example of a national importance would be something as recently, some of you have been members for a while would know that COPA over the past few years, or in the past few years, did bring a case as far as the Supreme Court, which took action to protect federal jurisdiction over aeronautics, in particular fighting against the abilities or the wishes of provincial or municipal governments trying to enact bylaws or regulations to aviation activities. So that was brought to the Supreme Court, cost a significant amount of money, took a very long time. So that's the idea of what we're looking at for the larger cases that the Freedom to Fly Fund would be specifically targeted at. Not to diminish individuals who obviously have issues on their local scene, things like airport leases or changes to lease terms, other things that you may experience at your airport or locally. Of course, they're still important to us. But we do recognize that those really need to be championed at the local level. So we really ask that if any of you are having issues, please bring it to our attention. We'd be more than happy to assist with regard to background information, advocacy material, legal contacts, anything we can do to support you in your case with your local, whether it's your local airport, your local municipality, whatever. We're more than happy to help in that way. But with the resources, just a few of us in the office, as you saw, it really is hard for us to take on multiple local cases. So we did have one little bit of a win in the Freedom to Fly this year. The board did approve a portion of funding to support actions that were led by local members in Alberta who challenged the Alberta Utilities Commission regarding several wind turbines that were being proposed near their airport. And through deliberation, the board decided that yes, COPA would support that action, which had concluded, as it had set a legal precedent that furthered an earlier ruling that had been made in Ontario back a few years back, in which COPA had supported. So, furthering that national structure and precedence around wind turbines in airports. So, we continue to look at cases as they come to us, and we hope that we don't have anything big to deal with, and we can certainly help anybody at a local level. So I think those are the highlights.
I was
I
going
don't
to
know
say,
if anybody else had anything
I'll give you a minute to take a breather there. I think that gives a bit of an indication of how much work takes place on the advocacy front, and
Well,
that's
it's
just the icing on the cake, right?
yeah, well, advocacy certainly is one of the forefront things for the association. Just as an aside, we do watch all regulation that's being proposed, any kind of documentation that comes up around that. And just as an aside, in 2024, we did count it up, and there were 115 separate notices that came from Transport Canada regarding possible regulatory type changes or reviews that were going on. So out of those 115, both George and I literally had to evaluate and look through all of those. So we're constantly trying to keep ahead of those things. Can be difficult at times. Obviously, the bigger issues take up a lot of the time. So the more help that we certainly can get from members with local issues is definitely appreciated.
And I think that's an important message, Jim, and just everything you laid out and all the work that you and George are doing, which is really great. We're doing a lot. Like, a lot of times members say, well, what's COPA doing? We're doing a lot. Not everything is moving we're not moving the football down. We're not scoring touchdowns every play, but we're moving the football down the field and we're working for your behalf. And, there's some other things here in the chat that I'm just reading. The 978, yeah, we're absolutely pushing for that. We don't own the spectrum. NavCan owns the spectrum of 978, but certainly we're advocates of having a 978B. In fact, if they replicated everything that they did in the US, that would have been the smartest thing they could have done, but they didn't. They did something else. And the fuel and and one thing that somebody posted there, we're not really great at beating our chests and telling everybody what we're doing all the time, and we need to get better at that. But I want the members to know that the team here at the COPA head office is working hard for you every single day. Sharon, you wanted to maybe walk us through the community building part of this and what the comms team has been doing and the events that are going on. And Michelle might have some stuff to chime in here too, but maybe you just want to take us through that.
Sure. And for those who are watching who are like me and might have some form of adult ADHD, we're going to record this and you can rewatch this at a later date because there's quite a few updates. We also send out emails providing summaries of some of the work that we do. We can't always give in-depth detail to what's taking place, but we can keep you abreast of some of those updates. And I thought it was worth pointing out that 100 low lead fuel shortage. There's some comments in here of we need to pay attention to this. And we were the only
100%.
ones, right, Mark? If you'd like to just add.
Oh yeah, no, we were the only ones. Like, we took immediate action as soon as we heard about it, knew about it. I was on the phone, sending emails, calling people, doing what we could do, finding out, basically getting a sit rep on what the situation was across Canada, because the reports originally came out of Western Canada, but it was really affected all of us. But it was a real eye opener to me because I didn't realize that we have one refinery in Canada that's producing avgas. One. Like, talk about critical path potential for failure. And how did we get there? That's a really good question. What I think we've been able to do is plug ourselves into Imperial Oil, who is the owner of the refinery, to let them know that we are the customers. Yes, you sell through fuel distributors. That's not the customer. That's just a distributor. We, the users, are the customer, and we've shared a lot of impact statements with them about how it affected. It wasn't just flying to Chilliwack to get pie where the people were affected. there was, there was real operations being affected, flight schools being affected, rationing of fuel, and they didn't appreciate that until after we had the conversation with them. So, God forbid it happens again. I think they'll be a little bit more proactive in letting us know, and hopefully we'll have some, a little bit more lead time to maybe change things or outcomes. But we were the ones that jumped on it originally and took the lead.
Excellent. And Jim, you had mentioned this before I move on to the community building. Jim, you had talked about the individual versus the national issues, but maybe we could just pause there for a minute, and if you could just further define what is a personal issue versus a national issue, or at least give some examples.
Yeah, and I think it a little bit like I had talked about there. We understand people have airport, leases for hangars, things like that at their airport. We recently, had an issue out in Langley, for those of you who are out in the BC side, where the airport was looking to basically take over tenants' buildings once their lease expired and then rent them back to them, of course, which was very concerning. But unfortunately, that was really number one. It was a real estate issue, number one, and the second was, it was really focused on an action that was happening in Langley. So we certainly worked with the group there to provide as much support as we could. We did point them at legal counsel that they could use locally. So something like that would be more of sort of an individual or a local issue, whereas something like, well, service denial is actually one of the ones, and there's another question there that I'll actually address to here at point two. Service denial is one that we're watching. It might be something that we might actually need to take legal action for. If it's happening at more than just Vancouver and Montreal, it's happening all over the place. And one of our members has indicated Toronto, absolutely. And we're looking at whatever solutions we can find for that. Right now, we're in the negotiation stage with NAV Canada, but we have talked to our legal counsel, and we believe that, if it gets to the point that we come to an impasse, there may be a legal avenue that we may be able to look to address the issue. So that would be a national issue, obviously. That potentially could restrict, VFR operations across the country.
Thank you. In consideration of time, we'll continue on here to share some more updates with you, as this is only what's taken place in 2024. So internally, we talk about connecting more with our members and connecting you together, communicating with you and advocating. And Mark had touched on an updated editorial for our magazine. We're also looking to add more member profiles, and so that it's content written by our members for our members. We are faced with the same issues as any organization with Canada Post and rising costs of paper and print. And so we are making some changes as a responsible organization. And that means that you still get the quality content. It'll be accessible to you online. And that's some of the feedback that we've heard directly from our members, that they're good with, as long as they're receiving the information. And so we'll seek to improve what that looks like. And I'm happy, and everybody here on the staff are happy to hear what some of those ideas are from you if you'd like to contribute. In terms of the community building, we have nearly 200 chapters. Some did take a bit of a break during those darker years of COVID, I suppose. And once you peel back, it's harder to come back. So we're looking to give you more resources to connect with your local flying communities and the members of the public, whether that's through sponsorship dollars, so a monetary support, or in kind. We can support with marketing and some resource development. We want you to be able to thrive locally. It's actually the history of COPA, where our chapters are what made us together and built up these regions. And so we want to lean into our history and give you the direct resources that you might need. And that means improving our programs, our Discover Aviation program, which previously was known as COPA for Kids, but we've evolved it beyond flying 8-year-olds up in the air. We're looking at it as a recruitment tactic, as an outreach initiative, so that you can connect with more members, as that's what we hear from you more and more of. how do we look towards succession planning? How do we inspire the next generation of pilots? And this is one of those resources. So we're currently working on some pre-ground school material that any of your participants from your local Discover Aviation events can take advantage of. We're looking to get more and more organized so that we can share months in advance to every Canadian that these are the Discover Aviation events happening in their neighborhood. So if you're a part of a chapter, and Hannah's about to ask, are you active in your chapter in the poll if you can access it, to help us pinpoint what your Discover Aviation event dates are going to be earlier on. And that way you can secure more resources from us, and we can know what you need earlier as well. Something new that we offered specifically in 2024 was member meetups all across Canada at various air shows. These were very successful. It was a new way for us to connect with you, with our members. And so we'll continue having an event in Western, Eastern, Central, and all over Canada, as long as we know that there's a large numbers of COPA members there. It's not a booth. It's really right on the flight line. You can watch the air show and have a private area to connect with other members if you'd like, or just get to hang out and watch the show. We have around 32,000 in scholarships. And sometimes when our members hear that we have scholarships, they think that it's exclusively to help new pilots. And of course, we do have scholarship opportunities for ab initio purposes, though our scholarships are for our members. And we've made some changes to our program that if you're applying, you do need to be a member for at least 3 months, or if it's at the ab initio level, you take the time to connect with our local chapters and meet a member before being qualified for our scholarships. And so we're looking to create more pathways for these future aviators or pilots to connect with our network. And we've made changes to our awards program. We have new awards that recognize best flight instructors of the year, best flight schools. There's some incentives that come with that. Mark, I won't steal your thunder, but we recently renamed the President's Award, and there's some real history along that, and maybe you could just add a commentary quickly there.
Yeah, so one of the founding figures of COPA was Margaret Carson, and I was really taken aback of what a marvelous job she did, and thinking that this is the inspiration for which the President's Award should fall after. It's that sort of initiative. I mean, here was a lady that really, when women didn't fly airplanes very much at all, really took the bull by the horns, as it was, and really formed COPA into what it was. It is, as much as we like to celebrate the men behind the COPA, it really was some strong women that really were laying the groundwork behind the scenes, and that shouldn't surprise anybody, actually, that happens. But I like the idea that we really need to honor that spirit, and take away from the president. The president is nothing COPA. It's really about the members, and here was a very strong personality for which we should celebrate.
Not surprising at all. Almost every female pilot I've ever met, especially in this community, are quite remarkable. And
they have a harder road than most, and in the aviation business. And I've worked my whole life and lived my whole life in the aviation business.
So you know what? That's a good point. This association is made up of members. So we're some of us are just aviation enthusiasts, and some of us have been members for some time. I should mention, in terms of some of those events, Oshkosh Sun and Fun, we do have a presence there. I saw a comment that Canada needs a Sun and Fun. I will say we've endeavored to build this up in the past. Our makeup is just a little slightly different, and so there was a consensus made at the board level that we would direct all of our energies towards the regional events. Our chapters, our COPA flights are already organizing very highly attended events and activities, and we want to back that. And so you'll see more concerted effort on our end to continue amplifying those efforts.
I would also agree, though, that Canada needs more sun and more fun, though. I would actually agree with that too.
Before I besmirch myself, I agree. I concur to that. I wouldn't, I would never disagree to that. But just moving on here, there's been some really good work that's been done, and we're not just tooting our own horns, but we're a small team, and we're passionate about the work that we do. But let's transition over to some of the thinking that goes into the future of the association. What say you, Mark, about our strategic priorities?
Yeah, so when in 2024, the board laid out and they spent a lot of time and energy and effort, and I applaud them for that, laying out the strategic priorities for what the members see. And just to make sure everybody understands, we have a board that's comprised of regional directors. But that is the first job of the board members is the regional director. They are elected by the membership to represent the interests of the members in the region for which they serve and they come from. And so they're the ones bringing the each of the regions' perspective to the overall governance of COPA. And so they put together the strategic priorities and vision. But in 2025, really, we're focusing on, and these are the board's strategic priorities. These are not Mark's strategic priorities. These are not Sharon's. These are not Jim's. These are not anyone at COPA Nationals. These are yours and your regional directors who form the board's strategic priorities. To provide a positive member experience with quality and valued services, resources, programs, and safety. And we are doing that in many, many ways. To promote general aviation in Canada, propel interest, participation, and pilot and member numbers. Advocacy to preserve and improve access to and safety of general aviation. Develop a robust communication and marketing ecosystem to the aviation and non-aviation communities. Diversify and expand revenue streams to assure the financial stability of the organization for positive execution of our mission, which essentially is sustainability. Everything that we do, every single day that we do it with these things in mind. So every single program you see, every piece of communication you get from us, every part of advocacy that we're doing on your behalf, we're doing it in accordance with these strategic priorities that have been set forward by the board. So some of the things that we hear that you've told us that matters to you, and these are the things that we are, backfilling on what those strategic priorities. Insurance. You're going to see big changes, some exciting changes in the insurance program. We've listened, and we want COPA to be the forefront best insurance option for general aviation in Canada, and we're working towards that. We're working and building new, news and content. We're having more leadership meetings. We're trying to stay relevant. We're trying to move a 1952 based association into 2025 and make sure that we're doing the things that our members want us to do. We're dealing with those national advocacy issues that Jim talked about. We're trying to provide more pilot meetups, and some of that really matters to you. Being involved at the local COPA flight is really where you're going to meet other people. When you join COPA, you immediately join an association, and you already have flying friends. So do stuff with them and enjoy their company. Inspiration and adventure. We try to put things out there. We try to give information. Some of the articles in the magazine are to inspire you and to say, hey, I could do that, something like that. We talk about positive member experiences. We have safety seminars, and Jim talked about this. We're going to have more regular safety seminars. We're going to have rust removers and things like that. And we're also thinking about supporting the next generation. Flying is continuing to evolve. The aviation industry globally is changing, and COPA is trying to adapt to that. We talked a little bit about the 100 unleaded situation that's coming, but more than that, there's bigger changes coming to propulsion potentially, and we're looking and seeing how that's going to affect us, and is it going to change? Hopefully, we're going to stay pilots and not just all turn into passengers of washing machines, but you never know what's going to happen. Recruitment and outreach materials. We continue to know that the association needs to grow, and the way it grows is by reaching out, and that's where that Discover Aviation programs can be very, very good for that. It's a way for you to share your aviation experience with other people. And it's not just about the COPA for kids. It's about, doing new things, learning new things, even for pilots that have been around, like, get a float rating, get a tail wheel endorsement, get an IFR rating, do something. And that's where you can also personally discover aviation beyond what you're currently doing. We've also are changing some of the things to the Canadian plane trade and trying to make it more of a relevant marketplace for the Canadian market. We'd really like to see it as the place that, Canadian owners buy and sell airplanes through, or buy and sell avionics or headsets or whatever, more of a marketplace type of thing. So these are all these things that you've told us that matter, and we're trying to adapt and make them relevant for today's COPA member. Next slide.
This is really a big part of our presentation today, but a big message that I hear from Mark often is, one, that aviation starts here. So you'll hear that a lot moving forward, but the association needs our members and that COPA matters. So what would you like to share some of those conversations that the staff have to the greater membership?
Yeah, certainly. COPA is not the head office. Okay. COPA is the membership. Anytime there's two people having two COPA members having a conversation about aviation in one way, shape, or form, it's a COPA meeting that's happening. Okay. The sharing of information, the connecting of members. And the membership, the COPA starts with you. Like, honestly, COPA, we want members that want to be active and involved and want to enhance general aviation and move it forward. We all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. We stand on the shoulders of the Margaret Carsons and the Jim Bowies and those people who came and built COPA to what it is today. But we all need to give back to general aviation. General aviation only can continue and excel and be here for generations to come. My children and their children, if we're doing the work that needs to make sure. Because if we don't, general aviation quickly becomes relegated to history. I mean, if you look and think of the countries, I think that Jim, you went to an AOPA meeting, and there was like, you talked to somebody from Korea or something like this. I might have the story wrong, and they have one or two airplanes, general aviation airplanes. That's not what we want to do, right? So we want to make sure we have a viable, vibrant general aviation industry in Canada. What I'll also say, one of the things that COPA doesn't exist. We don't have a whole bunch of corporate members like, NBAA or CBAA or all these AA types of associations. But what we do have, what our strength is that every single one of our members votes. And we should remember that. You need to tell everybody, every politician at every level, that general aviation is important to you. This is how we combat these municipalities who want to shut down airports and want to do all these things that are not conducive to general aviation. We have to remind them that we vote. And the thing is, and at every level of government, remind them that you vote. The thing is that those politicians need to, when they see that small airplane flying through the sky and they look up and they say, I know that person, that they're a voter. They live in my riding. They're the ones they're the ones doing it, because otherwise it's just a faceless thing that they don't understand. They need to see your face, you as the COPA member, your face as the face of general aviation in their riding that votes for them. And that's the important thing that I think that members need to realize, that a strong general aviation industry in Canada starts with you. Aviation starts here, but general aviation starts with you.
That's a critical message, especially with I'm in the Ottawa bubble, so I might be just paying extra attention to everything going on the Hill, but it affects the rest of Canadians. But it is an important moment for our constituency, if you'd like, since we are, if you add us all up, we're considerable number of people with voting privileges, as you mentioned, Mark. Maybe we could just add a general comment to the potentially upcoming election and how we're paying attention to that.
Absolutely. We are paying attention to it, hoping that some of the things that we've seen in the last few years, the luxury tax and the various things that have happened that have been not conducive to aviation are readdressed, relooked at. We certainly have been working with that. Even prior to this, we've been working with even the ADSB thing. We have been talking to everybody who will listen to us, including the Shadow Minister, Mark Strahl, talking to him about ADSB and why it's important and how it's really an inhibitor to safety if it's not employed properly. I think ADSB has the potential to be safe and safer, and I agree. There was comments about this. I agree with that, but the implementation of having this space-based thing that's very restrictive, and that there not be solutions available for a large part of the general aviation aircraft operating in Canada, that's problematic, right? Not everybody's Air Canada. Not everybody's flying a Dreamliner or a 737, right? So they haven't thought about that, in my opinion.
And you, so moving from federal, we just have a few minutes to answer some of the questions in the chat
Sure.
here. So moving from federal to municipalities, there was a question earlier on that you somewhat touched on, from Dan Stringer. In Ontario, municipalities are facing, actually, pre-warning, if I misread anything, don't judge me too hard. In Ontario, municipalities are facing increasing costs and are looking at ways to reduce these. Does COPA have a strategy for working with small municipalities to help them better manage their airports and avoid knee-jerk reactions of selling them or adding landing fees as they go through budget planning? Following question, is COPA involved in any municipal organization meetings to help with educating local politicians?
So we absolutely get involved when we're asked to get involved. We don't run around and check all the municipal governments and see what they're up to. It's oftentimes the local COPA flight that alerts us to something. And I know that there's some things going on in Ontario, there's some things going on in Quebec, there's some things going on in British Columbia, and we're aware of these and we support them where we can. I think the biggest thing to think about is, especially when municipalities are talking about shutting down airports, and they honestly really don't care about your recreational activity of aviation. But here's what they do care about. They care about that they are removing themselves by removing an airport or closing an airport or doing something restricting that. What they're really doing is removing their ability to have an air ambulance, for example. And people always think, well, yeah, but air ambulance, they fly helicopters into hospitals, not during snowstorms, they don't. And that's when those types of things and those types of services are needed. And when you put it into the cost of what it would cost, it probably costs $5 or $6 per person in the municipality to keep that airport open so that they can make sure that they have those emergency services available. And those are the kind of the discussions that we have and present. But we certainly have economic impact studies that were available, but we rely on the members and the local COPA flight captains to ask for help and see where we can help, and oftentimes we're successful because you can start to explain it in the terms that they understand. Because if they just try to make sense of, well, it costs us money to do this and it's just people flying in here for recreation, there's no argument for that. But there's real arguments for public safety and public service benefits that come from having an airport and keeping it active in the community.
Thank you for that, Mark. There's quite a few questions. I'll ask one more here. You had talked about basic med earlier, Jim, but there was just a question on what the progress on that is. If you could give us a very quick update again.
Yeah, so obviously Transport Canada, well, I'll give you the background that I know. So the latest that I have is Canada had a visit by the FAA administrator, well, the outgoing FAA administrator, um, towards the end of the last year, and they met with Transport Canada. And of interest is he actually is a basic med flyer. So it was about many issues they were talking, but basic med was brought up, and the American will that or hope that basic med will be recognized in Canada. Um, while that was expressed, um, Transport Canada obviously, we've been in discussion with them for as long as I've been with COPA, which is a little over 3 years now, about it. First of all, why not recognize the American pilots that are flying under it? That's fair, but let's have a reciprocal type thing that gives options to Canadian aviators for a different medical standard that might be a little less stringent than a Category 3 medical to keep people flying. So before Christmas, in discussions with the director of civil aviation medicine, he indicated to me in the conversation that they are in fact working on it. He is in discussions with the FAA Surgeon General about how they did it, about the results of basic med in the U.S. Obviously, Canada's medical system is not exactly the same as the U.S., so there would be a little bit of difference, but what they're trying to do is rewrite the Category 4 medical standard to pretty much align with basic med, and in exchange, Category 4 would be accepted in the U.S. and basic med would be accepted in Canada. So work is ongoing. They didn't give me a timeline, as I indicated in my short discussion, but they did say to expect some news in 2025. So I'm hoping that'll be positive, whether it's a timeline or if it's or if it's an announcement of the plan on how to do it. So it is being worked on. I'd say the positive is that first time really that I've gotten the indication that there's some kind of priority in Transport Canada to do it. Previous conversations were, yeah, we're aware of it, we're interested, but we don't have the resources and we don't have the priority. So the fact that they're talking about it is a very positive sign. I mean, I guess the proof will be in the pudding in the end, but we'll see what comes out in 2025.
But they have gone from the answer is no. Now, what's your next question?
Yeah.
To now they're talking to us about it and that. So that's very encouraging, and they're moving it in the right direction. So
Yeah.
it's not going to happen this week. It's probably not going to happen this year, but I'm confident it will happen. So
You heard it here, folks. 2025, January 14th.
no, it won't happen in 2025.
If that happens in
terms of today's
2025,
date.
I'll be doing a dance next year on
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
I'm going to close off with a really lovely comment from Brian Ashholm, who says, "Our association is in great hands. Mark, this is an amazing team you've assembled. After attending this webinar, I'm more confident than ever that COPA truly has our back. Thank you all." And that's our aim tonight, and we'll continue hosting events that connect our members together, whether they're safety seminars or simply just ways that members can chat and get to know each other. We have a large base. So thank you for that. And I'll leave it with Mark to share any last remarks.
That's it. Thank you. And thanks everybody for attending and taking an hour out of your busy Tuesday evenings. I appreciate that. Thanks to the staff. And yes, Brian, I think you're right. I do have an amazing staff, and they really do a great job for you. And I hope that everybody walks away from here learns something a little bit more about what COPA is doing for you, but also with the understanding that we're doing a lot, and we every single day we do a lot for the members, and we are focused on it. Sometimes we don't get it right. I admit that, but we really do try to do a good job and think of the members where we can. So thank you everybody. Thanks staff, appreciate it.
Everyone, see you at the seminar next week.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.